Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Ayin Amud Aleph, 70a of Maseches Kiddushin, and we are starting about 7 lines from the bottom of the page. Actually, 8 lines from the bottom of the page, and we're really in the middle of a story. And the story involved a certain man from Neherda. This man went to a butcher shop in the city of Pumbedisa, and there was somebody ahead of him, and the person ahead of him was the Shamish, the servant of Rabbi Yehuda bar Yechezkel, and this man insulted the servant. He was upset that they would serve the meat, provide meat to the servant before him, and he insulted him, and then they went and told Rabbi Yehuda about it. Rabbi Yehuda put this man in Cherem. He excommunicated him because of his act. And then they told Rabbi Yehuda, by the way, the same man goes around and calls people avadim. He calls them slaves. So Rabbi Yehuda said, if he calls people slaves, that means he is a slave, because the person projects their own poor qualities or in this case, his poor lineage, onto other people. So he must himself be a aved, be a slave. So this upset the man very much, and he called Rav Yehuda to court, to a din Torah, in front of Rav Nachman. So when Rav Yehuda came to Rav Nachman, so the Gemara recounts that Rav Nachman was saying different things, and Rav Yehuda was asking him why he's using such language. So the first was that Rav Nachman had called a fence a gundrisa, and Rav Yehuda questioned that, and then Rav Nachman called a bench a karpita, and he questioned that, and that's where we pick up, again, 8 lines from the bottom of the page. Towards the end of the line, it says, Amar le, so then Rav Nachman said to Rav Yehuda, Lechol mar esronga, would the master like to eat an esronga? Now, you guessed it, an esronga is an esrog, but he didn't say they called it an esronga. So Amar le, so Rav Yehuda responded, Hachi Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said, Shmuel was his rabbi, as we see, he keeps quoting him, he's going to keep quoting him. And Shmuel says, Kala Omer esronga, anybody who refers to an esrog as an esronga, tilsa biramos rucha, he has a third of haughtiness. A third of his outlook is haughty, and that's why he uses this fancy language like esronga instead of esrog, and really esrog. He should either call it an esrog kidikaru or rabbanan, like the rabbanan call it. Again, the word esrog doesn't actually appear in the Torah. The Torah calls it a pre-eitz hadar, a beautiful fruit. But the rabbis refer to a fruit called an esrog. Oh, esroga, damriinchi, or he should call it an esroga. But calling an esronga, that's apparently, maybe a fancy way of saying it, and only somebody who has at least 1/3 of their outlook is driven by haughtiness. That's who uses such language. Okay, that's what Shmuel had said, so Rabbi Yehuda questioned why Rav Nachman was using such language. Amar le, so then Rav Nachman said to Rav Yehuda, Lishtimar anbaga, would the master like a drink of anbaga? Amar le, so he said to him, Misani ispargus to kayu rabbanan, is it despised before you the word ispargus, which is how the rabbis usually refer to this drink? This was not clear actually what it is. Rashi doesn't tell us exactly what it is, but it sounds like asparagus juice. It's asparagus, and he said, is there a problem with that word? Or anpak, the amri inshi, or at least call it anpak, which is what other people call it. Okay, so again he questioned the language Rav Nachman was using. Amar le, so then Rav Nachman said, Tesi donag tashkinan. He said, call Donag, which was the name of his daughter, and she should give us a drink. So Amar lei, so Rabbi Yehuda said, Hachi Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said, Ein mishtamshim be'isha. You're not allowed to be served by a woman. It's not modest, or in this case, Rashi says, you don't want to teach her that she should be around men. So he said, Kitana here. Rashi said she's a child still, so it's okay. Amar lei, so Rabbi Yehuda said, Befeirish Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said explicitly, Ein mishtamshim be'isha klal, ben gadol ben kitana. You can't be served by a woman, whether it's a adult or a child. Doesn't matter. Okay, Amar lei, then he said to him, Nishtar le'mar shama lialta. Would you be able to send regards to my wife for me? His wife's name was Yalta. So, Amar lei, so he said to him, Hachi Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said, Kol be'isha erva. A woman's voice is like nakedness. We usually understand that to mean a singing voice. Apparently he was applying it just to go and talk to her. And since you're asking me to go check on her, to go send her peace or check on her, on how she's doing, so she's going to talk to me. So Amar lei, so Rav Nachman said, Efshar yidei shliach. Just send a messenger. Don't go yourself. Then send a messenger. Amar lei. So Rav Yehuda said that's still no good. Hachi Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said, top of the next page, Ein shalim b'shalom isha al yidei ba'ila. Sorry, Ein shalim b'shalom isha. You shouldn't check. You shouldn't ask how a woman is doing. Again, there's a concern that they're going to get too close. So, Amar lei. Sorry, so he said Al Yidei Ba'ala. So then Rav Nachman said, what about if I'm the shliach for you? If I'm the messenger, I'm the husband. So can the husband be the messenger? Amar lei. So again, said Rav Yehuda Hachi Amar Shmuel, Ein shalim b'shalom isha klal. You can't go and ask regarding a woman at all. Because even if there's a messenger, but if she knows where it's coming from, then that can cause closeness between her and a man who is not her husband. Okay, now, Shalcha le'devisu. At that point, his wife, who I guess had overheard what was going on, sent a message, and she said, Shari le'tagre dulo nishvach kishar amaretz. She said, let him leave. Let this man leave so that he doesn't render you like any amaretz, like any ignoramus. Meaning, ask this man, let him go already. He's just he's just outsmarting you over and over again. Fine. So says, I guess she was done hosting, offering him this or offering him that, and now she said, let's send this guy on his way. So Amar lei. So then Rav Nachman said to Rav Yehuda, "My shaite demar hacha." He said, "What are you doing here? What brings you here?" Amar lei. He said, Rav Yehuda said, "Taska de hazmanusa shadar mar basrai." You, Rav Nachman, sent me a summons to come here. Amar lei. So Rav Nachman said, "Hashta shusa demar lo gamirna taska de hazmanusa mishadarna." He said, "I can't even speak your language on your level." And you've called me out on how I speak the language, and I'm gonna summon you for a court case. It sounds crazy. It doesn't seem like I'm fit to judge you. So Amar lei, afik diska das manusa mi bechadia va'achsi lei. So Rabbi Yehuda pulled out the summons and he showed it from his chest, and he showed it to Rav Nachman. Amar lei. He said to him, "Ha-gavra v'ha-daska." So I guess Rabbi Yehuda said, "Here is the man, and here's the summons. It really happened." Amar lei. So Rav Nachman said, "Ho v'asamar lahacha." Since you came all the way here, Lishtoi mile, let's talk about the case. So that nobody says that the rabbis cover up for each other. Let's do this properly and let's have this din Torah, this court case. So Amar Le, Sir of Nachman said to Rabbi Yehuda, "My taima shamte mar lahu gavra." Why did you put that man in cherem? Why did you excommunicate him? Amar Le, sorry. So he said, "Tzir shlicha derabanan." So the reason is because he was mitzar. He caused pain to a shliach, to a messenger of the rabbi, of me. My shliach was, my servant was getting me, and this guy was causing him problems. So that's why I put him in cherem. Said Reb Nachman ben Nagnemar, you shouldn't have put him in cherem. You should have just lashed him, giving him lashes. The Rav man gedal man de mitzar shlucha derabanan, because that's what Rav would do. He would, if somebody was mitzar, if somebody was harassing a shliach, an agent of the Rabbanan, so Rav would give him lashes. That's what he should have done. So Rabbi Yehuda said, "Adif minei avdilei." I did better than that. Putting him in cherem is even worse of an experience, and that's what I thought was fitting for this situation. So then Rav Nachman said, "My taima acher is maralei da'avdahu." Why did you declare publicly that this man was a slave? Amarle, so Rabbi Yehuda explained, "De ragul dekarienchi avdi." The reason is because he regularly called people slaves. Vitani, and we teach kol apostel. Anybody who goes around and apostles other people and diminishes other people, that means that person is apostle. They are diminished. They are disqualified. And especially somebody who never praises people, compliments people. And Shmuel added, it's not just that they're apostle, but their own blemish is what they apostle other people. It's their own blemish that they project onto other people. So explain to Rabbi Yehuda, you know why I said he's a slave? Because he goes around calling people slaves. He must be a slave. That's what my Rebbe taught me. That's how it works. So Rav Nachman would say, "Eimar damer Shmuel lemecha shlei." Maybe Shmuel only meant that you have to be concerned that that's what he is. But to go so far as to announce that he's a slave, is that what Shmuel meant when he said? When Shmuel said that a person who goes around insulting people has that blemish, does he mean we know for sure and you can announce it? Or did he just mean that we should be choshesh, we should be concerned that they have that very blemish? So that was the conversation. And adahachi bahachi also bardine minardai. That guy, that Naradian man, the other guy who was part of this court case, appeared. He came. Amar le'ahu bardine Rav Yehuda. He said to Rav Yehuda, this man said to Rav Yehuda, "Lididi karisli avda." You call me an Eved, de asina beis chashmonai ka asina. Desim beis chashmonai malka. He said, I come from the house of the Hasmonean kings, the Chashmonayim. Very appropriate for this week of Chanukah. So he's like, I'm a descendant of the Chashmonayim, who became the kings of Israel, and you're calling me a slave. Amarle, so he said back, Rabbi Yehuda said, Hachi Amar Shmuel, so taught Shmuel called the Amar me de beis chashmonai kasina avdahu. Anyone who claims that they come from the house of the Chashmonaim, that means they are an Eved, they are a slave. That was the teaching of Shmuel. So exactly, I nailed it. He didn't know that before, but he says, I nailed it, because I knew you were a slave. I said you were a slave, and now you just proved it, because you said you came from the Chashmonaim. And Shmuel says, anyone who says they come from the family of the Chashmonaim, the Hasmoneans, is a slave. Amarle, so he said back to him, or I think Rav Nachman actually said to Rav Yehuda, Lo savar lamar lahadam Rav Abba Rav Huna Marav. Do you, the master, not hold of the teaching of Rav Abba, the name of Rav Huna, the name of Rav, that called Talmud Chacham Shemora Halacha? Uba. If a Talmud Chacham teaches a halacha, im kodem ma'isa amra shomena, if he says it before the ma'isa, before the event that it's going to affect, then we can listen to that halacha. V'imla, but if he only says it after the fact, ein shomin lo, we don't listen to him. So you're claiming that there's a teaching of Shmuel that says that anybody who says that from the house of the Chashmonaim is a slave. But that's after you already declared the guy a slave. So we can't believe you that teaching is correct. You have a bias here because you have to back up your claim. If you had said it before you made that claim, then we could believe you. So Amar Lei, so Rav Yehuda responded, Ha'ikar Rav Masna dekai kavasi. There's Rav Masna who holds like me. He also heard Shmuel say this, that anybody who comes from the house of the Chashmonaim is a slave. So I have Rav Masna on my side. Now, the Gemara tells us something fascinating. The Gemara says that Rav Masna l'chazia l'nerda tleisar shani. Rav Masna had not been in the city of Nerda in 13 years. Hahu yoma asa. That day he came. First time in 13 years he happens to be in town, and they summoned him, and Amar Lei, and now he said to him, Rav Yehuda said, Dachir mar mai Amar Shmuel ki koi chad kara aguda v'chad kara amavra. Do you remember what Shmuel said when he had 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the ferry, on the boat? Or some say on the bridge. So they had a specific image of when Shmuel said this, and that's how he told Rav Masna, do you remember what Shmuel said when he had a foot on the ground and a foot on the ferry? Amar Lei. So Rav Masna said, Hachi Amar Shmuel. This is what Shmuel said at that time, called the Amar Mideis Chashmonai Malka Kasina. Anybody who says I come from the family of the Hasmonean kings of the Chashmonaim, Avdahu, he's an Avd, he's a slave. Why? Dolo ishtior minayu, because there was nobody left from that family. They were all wiped out. Ela Ravisa, there was one young woman who was left. Disalka le'igra, she went up to the roof. The Ram Yakal, and she called out the Amar, and she said, Kol de Amar mi beis Chashmonai na. Anybody who claims to be from the house of the Chashmonaim, Avdahu, that person is really an Eved, is a slave. And Nafla me'igra meis, and then that woman was the last remaining descendant of the Chashmonaim who wasn't a slave. She fell off the roof, or maybe she jumped, and she died. So, what happened? Why is this? Why are all descendants of the Chashmonaim slaves? The answer is because Hurdus, was a slave, and he rebelled and killed the all the descendants of the Chashmonaim, and he made himself king, and he called his descendants from the house of the Chashmonaim, but they really weren't. They were slaves because they were descended from a slave. Now, had he married Jewish girls, so then actually the lineage would follow the woman, and the children would be Jewish. They wouldn't be slaves. But the Rashi says that certainly no Jewish girl would have agreed to marry him. So because he was an Eved, because he was a slave, and they're not allowed to marry him. So therefore, it must be his wives were not Jewish girls, and the children therefore would follow the status of the father and the mother, and they'd be slaves too. So anybody who descends from the house of the Chashmonaim, who says they come from the house of the Chashmonaim, is slaves, because really they come from the house of Hirad, who was a slave. So Achruz Aleh de Avdahu. So they announced this man from Nerda, the guy from the butcher shop, is in fact a slave. Hauyoma, that day, Akaran Kamak Ksubas v'Nerda. Numerous Ksubas in Nerda had to be torn up, because there were family children of this, descendants of this person, who were thought to be Jewish originally, and now we realize they're slaves. So they cannot marry, and their marriage contracts had to be torn up. Kikanafik, Rav Yehuda was leaving town, Nafki Abasrei L'Mirgamei, some of these people who were affected, I guess, by this testimony, they chased after him to stone him. So Amar Lahu, he said to them, he sees them coming, and Rabbi Yehuda says, Ishatiku shatiku, if you'll be silent, meaning if you don't do anything. V'ilo magrina alaychu, hadamar Shmuel. He said, it's for your own good to be silent, don't make a ruckus, and if you're not, then I'm going to unleash something that Shmuel taught, which remains hidden and can affect everyone, and that is Tarti Zarayas Ikka ben Erda. There's two categories of descendants, two families in Nerda. Chada Mikri de Beyona. One is called the house of doves. The Chada Mikri de Bey Urbasi, and the other one is called the house of ravens. So there's the house of doves and the house of ravens. V'simanech, and the way you remember which of these two families was good and which one was bad, right? Because there were two families in Narda. One was called Yona, one was called the house of ravens, of Urvas. And the simon, to remember that, the memory tool is Tame, Tahor, Tahor, period. There's two families. So Rabbi Yehuda is threatening that if they chase him and they were going to stone him, if they do, I guess before they have a chance, or maybe they weren't going to kill him, they were just going to injure him. And he says, I'm going to reveal that which Shmuel said. Shmuel said there's two families in there, and one is the house of doves, one is the family of ravens, and Simanech, the way you know which one's and basically one was a good family, and one was a kosher family of good lineage, and one was a puzzle lineage. And he said, I'm going to reveal which one's of disqualified lineage. And the way you remember is Tame. The animal, the family name that's an animal that's Tame, that's not kosher, the raven, that's the family that's Tame, that has improper lineage. Tahor, and the one that's from the kosher bird, the dove, that family is good. Now it sounds like there were he knew about the existence of these families, but nobody necessarily knew where they actually came from. He could reveal that. That was what Shmuel could have revealed. We knew that whoever came from the raven family, from the raven descendants, that's puzzle. Whoever came from the doves was kosher, but they didn't know who was who. That was something that he could have revealed. But he said, I'll do it if you don't leave me alone. So what happened? Shadyua lahu rigma miyadayu. They threw away the rocks that they were going to use to stone him. Vikam atma b'nahar malka. And they created a dam in the Nahar Malka, the king's river. So there's some special river, and they threw the rocks, and there were so many rocks it dammed up the river. Okay, not something that Rav Yehuda would have wanted to experience. Okay, now, once we talk about announcing people's disqualification or diminished lineage, problematic lineage, so the Gemara gives more examples of that. So it says, Machris Rav Yehuda Pumbedisa, Rav Yehuda announced in the city of Pumbedisa, Ada v'Yonasan Avdi. I guess these are family names. Ada and Yonasan, they are Avadim, they are slaves. Yehuda bar Papa Mamzera. Yehuda bar Papa's family is they are Mamzerim. Bati bar Tovia, B'Ramos Rucha. And this guy, Bati bar Tovia, lived in Ramos Rucha, lo shakel gita de cherusa. He never got a get. So, he never got a get of freedom. He never got a bill of freedom. He's still a slave because he was never freed. So different types of psulim being mentioned here. Machar is Rava b'Mechuza. Rava announced in the city of Mechuza, Balai, Danai, Talai, Malai, Zagai. All those families, kulam lipsul. They're all pasul. They're all disqualified. Amar Rav Yehuda, Rav Yehuda said, Govai, Givonai. The Govai, they are Givonim. Dornunisa, Darai. Darai, Nisinai. These other places or families, Dornunisa and Darai, they are Nisinai. They are Nisinim, which is also the Givonim. Rav Yosef said, Hai Bei Kubi Devambedisa, Kulam Da'avdi. There's a certain Bei Kubi, and this certain family, and Rav Yosef said, this family that lived in Pumbedisa, Kulam Avdi, they're all slaves. Okay, so just different examples of different families that were being called out for their diminished lineage. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Arba Meos Avadim, 400 slaves. V'amri la Arba Salafim Avadim, and some say it was 4,000. Hayula with Pashchur ben Imar. Pashchur ben Imar had many slaves, either 400 or 4,000. V'kulam nitmu b'kahuna, and all of them got mixed in and lost within the Kohanim. That you didn't know who was a slave and who was a Kohen. V'chol Kohen sheish b'al azus panim, eno alamehem. Now, if a Kohen has azus panim, has brazenness, then you know they come from those people, because those were brazen people, and you know if they're brazen, you know they come from them, and actually then. These people were they were slaves, meaning you know that they can't really be Kohanim, but they got mixed in. They got mixed in because they were the slaves of Kohanim. I guess Pashchur ben Imar was a Kohen, and the slave of a Kohen is allowed to eat Truma, and so it looks like he's a Kohen. Really, he's a slave of a Kohen. So. Fine. So there was so they got mixed in, and the Gemara says that any Kohen who has brazenness must be from them. Amar Abaye Kulon Yasvan B'Shura de Benerda. He said they all live in Shura and Erda. Okay. Upliga de Rabbi Elazar, and that which we said that any Kohen who has brazenness must be from this family of slaves, that is in disagreement with Rabbi Elazar. The Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, if you see a Kohen who has a brazen forehead, he's brazen, don't doubt him, don't think badly of him, and don't think badly of his lineage. Don't say he must come from these slaves. Shnemar ve'amech kemerive Kohen. Your nation is like those who argue with Kohanim, or those Kohanim who argue, and so we see Kohanim argue, they're brazen, and so it's not necessarily an indication that they descend from slaves. That's how Kohanim are. Amar Rabbi Avin bar Rav Ada Amar Rav. Now Rabbi Avin bar Rav Ada said the name of Rav Kol no say isha sheino geneslo. So back to our different statements about people who marry women who are not halachically fit to marry. So they say in the name of Rav Kol no say isha sheino geneslo. Whoever marries a woman who's not who's prohibited to him, Kishakadosh Baruch Hu Masher Shchinaso, when Hashem rests His presence. He testifies about all the Shvatim, all the tribes that they are his people, but he does not testify about this such a person who marries in a prohibited way. Shenemar Shiftei Ka Edus L'Yisrael. The Shvatim of Hashem are a testimony to Yisrael. When are they a testimony to Yisrael? Bisman she'ashvatim shivtei ka. That's when they are the Shvatim of Hashem. When they're doing what they're supposed to do, then they're edus Yisrael. Then they're a testimony to Yisrael. They're a testimony to, or Hashem testifies to their kosher status. So fine. So that's the idea that if a person marries someone who's prohibited, when God dwells His presence, He testifies about the other Shvatim, or about all the Shvatim, all the tribes, but not about this person. And that's a testimony, apparently, to their good status within Israel. Amar Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Chama, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, "Kishakadosh Baruch Hu Masher Shchinaso." When Hashem causes His presence to dwell, in Mashal al Mishpachos Miyuchasos Shebe Yisrael, He only does it within families that are miyuchas, that have good lineage. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Ba'isahinu Hashem." At that time, so says Hashem. This is a pasuk. This is a verse in Yirmiyah. It says there. Eya le'elokim l'chol mishpachos Yisrael. It says, Hashem says, I will be an Elokim, I will be a God to all the families of Israel. L'kol Yisrael lo nemar. It doesn't say to all of Israel. Elo l'kol mishpachos. Rather, it says to all the families of Israel. So what kind of families are we talking about? We're talking about families that are totally Yisraelim, that don't have any of these diminishing qualities. V'hem hayu li lam, and they will be for me a nation. Now, Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Zuma le'aser yesh ben Yisrael l'gerim. We see from here, this is representative of a certain mila, a certain benefit that a Jew who's a Jew from birth has over a Jew by choice over a convert. And that is the Ilu b'Yisrael ksibu. When it comes to a regular Yisrael, a regular Jew, meaning someone who's born a Jew, it says, "Vayisi lahem le'elokim ve'hem hayu li la'am." It says that Hashem says, "I will be a God to them, and they will be a nation to me." So it sounds like Hashem is willing to take the first step and say, "I will be a God to them, and they will be a nation to me." Ve'ilu begerim ksiv, but by converts it says, "Miu zeh areves libo lageshes elai." Who is this that has improved, sweetened their heart to come close to me? Num Hashem, says Hashem. V'yisem li la'am, you will be a nation to me, v'anochi yaya lachem le'elokim, and I will be a God to you. So first you will come close, you will be a nation to me, and then I will be a God to you. So when it comes to Yisrael, we see that when it comes to we see this added benefit of someone who's born Jewish, that Hashem will make the first move. Somebody who is converting, so they have to make the first move, which makes sense because they don't have that established relationship. They're creating it, so it has to come from them. Fine. So that's the end of it. We'll stop there. The Gemara now is gonna talk more about converts once it mentioned that. But the Gemara has many times now indicated that stated that if a person marries a woman who he's not allowed to marry, so obviously it's a transgression, but it has many repercussions, and that one of the repercussions being described here is that when Hashem dwells His presence, He doesn't dwell in a place where a illicit preliminary marriage has taken place. Okay, Meretz Hashem will continue here next time.